Hey, it's Tim here. In today's video, I'm just going to be doing a very brief channel update. We've just hit 10,000 subscribers. So what I wanted to do is take this opportunity to share a little bit more information about the journey to this point, and also share some updates about what's coming in the future. You might have noticed I haven't posted any videos in a while. So yeah, I'll get into that as well. So yeah, as I always say, let's get stuck in. So first up, 10,000 subscribers. Honestly, like a year ago, a year and 8 months ago, when I started this sort of idea, I thought maybe it might be useful if I did videos about what's new in Tableau. And I chose that topic because I always thought, well, if you record videos about what's new, eventually that becomes sort of staple features in the product and it's everlasting content. One of the big challenges with covering stuff like Tableau through a video format is you don't want the videos to go stale really quickly. You kind of want the content to be everlasting. If you look at Tableau content, so often you find stuff that's sort of fallen out of date very quickly, old forums, old suggestions. And I also just wanted to come at this from a different angle. I thought video was a really good way of just showing people how easy the product is and hopefully reaching a new audience. I totally respect the content out on blogs and everything, but I personally just didn't connect with that kind of format that well. I really struggled to write blogs myself. I've tried it many times, it just didn't work. So I thought video would be a great way of showing how Tableau works. Fast forward, a year and 2 months later, and we're at 10,000 subscribers. The response has been absolutely phenomenal. So what I wanted to do is just go into some of the analytics behind this, show you sort of the mechanics of how this works, so that if you're thinking of making content about Tableau, that you can get stuck into, you can sort of understand what you need to think about and how you can approach it. I'll even dig into some of my more granular analytics so you can see how that all works. Okay, so let's get stuck in. So here we're on the channel. You can see YouTube as I see it pretty much. I have a YouTube premium subscription just because I think it's a nice way of enjoying YouTube. It allows you to do things like download content offline, and it's just a much better experience. No ads, really high quality content, and you also get access to like things like YouTube exclusive and stuff. I don't watch any of that. I just like the no ad experience. You can also just put an ad blocker on the thing to get that, but I just like the ability to download videos on my phone so I can watch them offline. I mean, I use that a lot when I was commuting to work, but I guess no one does that at the moment. So anyway, here we are on the channel, and generally you just see pretty much sort of my most recent content. I have this section here which features some great Tableau channels you should follow. If you don't follow all of these channels, get involved, start following them. They all produce content that's really good, really high caliber content, some of it way better than my own. They also inspire me to create more content, better content as well, so definitely go check them out. I'll maybe touch on that a little later because there's some interesting analytics actually behind featuring other subscribers that I think is really interesting, that other people should really sort of pay attention to that. So anyway, let's get stuck into the analytics. I'm going to first go to this first tab here called the channel dashboard. And essentially when I log into YouTube every single day, I do actually log in every single day now. This is what I see. I get a very brief rundown of the last video's performance, channel analytics, and some other general news. Any comments that have come in the most recent comments that I haven't responded to, they all come in here, as well as sort of the performance of the most recently published videos. And so this is all really useful content, but it's not that great because there's just a lot of stuff in here that's not useful. I will say one thing though, this section here on the left hand side, if I just highlight it for you here, this stuff over here, man, this is brutal, because every time you launch a video, YouTube does this thing where it's like it compares your video performance based on the last 10 videos, and when you release a video and the most recent thing you released doesn't make it into like the top half, this basically makes you feel like you shouldn't have ever released it at all. But I know that a lot of my content is actually evergreen, so I don't pay too much attention to this, but sometimes you put something up and it's just brutal, like your content didn't even make it into the top 10. So it's a really interesting dynamic, and I think they put that in there to sort of promote you to sort of create more content. But this is it. You'll notice we passed 10,000 subscribers like a week ago, but we're already still growing, we're still moving really forward. So I just wanted to dive into that in a bit more detail. So let's go over to the second tab here, where we just talk about how does the content get out to people. Well, the biggest percentage of videos, literally 75% of video views come from YouTube's own algorithm. What does that mean? So you see here, it's got YouTube search, suggested videos, and external. YouTube search and suggested videos are driven by the YouTube algorithm. So if you add these up, 36 plus 23.8, that's well over half my videos are, people find them through YouTube's own suggestion engine. They actually have a little bit of information here. Search terms used by viewers on YouTube to find your content. The algorithm drives that search capability. And again, views from suggested suggestions appearing alongside or after other videos, again, that's driven by the algorithm. So it's so important if you're going to make content for YouTube to just understand it. It's great making content. You should do it anyway and make it useful, but your content's only useful if it reaches more people. And so if you just put something up, you don't really pay attention to how the algorithm likes to sort of view content and some of the mechanics, your content won't reach as many people as it could possibly help. So that's sort of how I think of it. If I can optimize the way that YouTube sees the content better, it suggests that content to more people, and more people are more likely to find it, even if they're not explicitly looking for Tableau content. So that's a very important thing to bear in mind. They might be looking for Power BI content, for example, but it suggests them my content because it guesses that they're interested in analytics. So that's one dynamic. So the thing is though, the algorithm can only put content in front of people. And so essentially what then happens is you have this sort of dynamic where YouTube will show people content, but then it's also paying attention to how many of those people actually click through and read the content. So if you look on the right hand side here, you see the impressions and reach nearly 1 million in the last 28 days. So that's 1 million times YouTube has recommended my content to people, okay? But of that percentage, only 2.7% actually clicked on that content. So it's doing a whole load of promotion, and it's essentially a competition, and you're fighting lots of other people for that attention. I'll come back to that in a second. And so you get this number here. So views from impressions, so 25,000 of those, nearly 1 million views actually sort of converted. And of those 25,000, they spent an average of 4 minutes watching a video. So that to me is really, really important, because people are finding the content, and on average, which is, it looks at a spread of data and we're looking at the middle point, on average, people spend about 4 minutes. Many people spent a lot less, but quite a lot more people spent at least 4 minutes or more. And that's sort of a really, really important sort of thing to bear in mind, because you're competing with lots of other different types of content. And so that average view duration to me is like a little signal of how much time people really have when they're watching the video. So 4 minutes is like 4 minutes 30, 5 minutes is like a sweet spot for content. If I keep going down here, you'll see that my external traffic sources, now this is a bit of a misleading graphic because it's got some context. External traffic represented 14.1% of all my traffic. So if I go up here, you see that this 14.1 matches to this number here. So you can see how it represents my total sort of figure. But if I go down, you'll see that 77% of that 14% came from Google Analytics. So you can essentially just take that number and figure out roughly what's going on up here. So maybe you could say maybe 10% of all my YouTube traffic came from Google Analytics, which is again, another important metric. You need to optimize your content for Google search as well. Again, I'll come to that a little later on. If I go to YouTube, you'll see WhatsApp and LinkedIn. This is all great. These are the places that people share your content. In fact, if I see more, there's always some interesting data here, because if I just go down here, you'll see that obviously the top was Google search. My own website second. That's really important. I'll come to that in a second. YouTube after that. So these are people visiting youtube.com, not on YouTube, but on some sort of it's really hard to explain, but essentially browsing a different form of YouTube. But we can come back to that a little later. You can see here it gives you sort of an explanation. So it's a little bit of a sort of a strange one, but we'll come to that. WhatsApp, people sharing videos in WhatsApp messages, again, 47 times in the last 28 days, which is great. LinkedIn.com, 44 views. So that's from me sharing it probably. It's not as many as you'd think. Lots of people see the messages, but not many actually click and watch the content. Google itself, again, so Google search and Google are sort of categorized differently. Twitter. And as you go further down, you start to see really interesting things. Like I see a lot of learning and education platforms popping in here. So Blackboard, people embedding the video, Telegram, people sharing the content. .edu websites, universities who are putting these explainers inside of their own platforms. So it's also really good insight because people are sharing my content and embedding it inside of their learning platforms, which is great. That's exactly the whole intention, and it's supposed to go out and help as many people as possible. And that's just over a 28-day period. If I look at the whole year, maybe that number is a lot bigger, and over time this will happen more and more. So let's go back to the main page, and here we are. So that's, the external bit. The traffic sources from playlists. Playlists are very, weirdly, they're the thing I promote the most, but actually generate the least traffic because not many people watch the playlist from beginning to end. However, the individual videos do get a lot of views. And so, people do like just skimming through some of the videos, so they don't watch it all. And the way it counts this metric is a little bit strange. Suggested videos, these are essentially other videos where at the end YouTube is suggesting that they go watch my content. So some of that is Tableau in 2 minutes. This is a video on another channel. What is Tableau? A Tableau overview, again a video from Tableau themselves. And my Tableau explained in 10-minute video generates myself a lot of own sort of internal traffic. So YouTube will suggest other videos I've made to the same people, which is great. So again, this is really useful information. And again, YouTube search, you can see the terms. This is a bit of a hit and miss. Maybe in another video when I explain how I make videos, I'll touch on this a little bit more. So that's pretty much the reach bit. The engagement bit is a really interesting bit. So here you can see roughly the last 28 days. You can see each one of these is basically me posting a video. Okay, so I sort of did it very meticulously every day for 2 weeks. And then if I go back to the last 90 days, you can see there's a slightly more sort of broken pattern. So I'm actually not as consistent as, YouTube would like. YouTube likes consistency, and it likes sort of predictability, because then it can start to know when it can promote your content, and it can go reach the same people that you've maybe previously reached with more content. It keeps people on YouTube. So I don't do well on that metric when it comes to YouTube. But what is interesting to note is the amount of time that people have watched. So 8,000 hours in the last 90 days. If I just go back to the last month, 30 days, this is the more meaningful stat to me, is 3.2 thousand hours. I don't know why I said it like that. I should have just said 3,000 hours. But again, that's a really important metric, because if you take that amount of time and you think, that is more time than I can possibly spend in multiple years helping people, right? So this is again another great way of scaling the help you can offer people. Reading blogs doesn't quite generate the same metrics, because when you're reading content, it takes a lot longer to assimilate it, and actually you have to read it quite a lot of time. So in terms of efficiency, I'd actually argue that videos are maybe more efficient at getting the same information out there, because there's a couple of things built into this. The best thing though on this page is actually this. So you can see here the last 10 videos that I released. Again, they were all in the last 28 days. And what YouTube shows you is where people are paying attention. So if I click on this one here, you can see I get a little graph that shows me where people are dropping off. And generally speaking, this trend line here is actually pretty good for YouTube. So ideally by about halfway, if you still have about 50%, you're doing reasonably well, because, people's attention drop off. Maybe people know the content and it's sort of, interesting. But if we look through some of these, you'll notice that sometimes the line is flatter. So when the line's flatter, that's a signal to me that people don't understand the topic as well. So they're spending a little bit more time in there. So it's a little bit more sticky. So around about the halfway mark here, I still had over 50% of people involved. And that's, again, a really good, for a long video, that's actually quite a really good metric. So that number I talked about, 4 minutes 34, if I actually go to that point here, you can see that that's there. And beyond that, we're still holding a majority of people watching the videos, and it's quite a large percentage in this particular case. The index function, again, this is interesting. When you start to see these sort of small peaks, if I just go to that particular point in the context, I can actually see what people are watching, because these are a little bit odd, because when it goes down and up, that suggests people are rewatching content. So a particular segment is being watched multiple times, and that's great information. Then literally the second I say that I'm done, the attention drops off and people skip off to the next video. So for everyone who stays until the very last second, totally appreciate you. Really love it. If I go to another one, let's go to this one, because this is an interesting one. This is when I announced basically new website, and I covered a bunch of other things. And so if I go through this, you can see very clearly that I've got some other peaks. But you know, I talked about my new website, which was all great, but you guys weren't interested at all. What you did do though is skip ahead and find the section where I start talking about the actual pages and the playlists on my website, and then other YouTubers. So this is a great sort of insight. Like, you know, I shared some other YouTubers you should follow, and people went to those videos and found them and, you know, started sharing it. So, you know, if people are skipping ahead to that content, that's a signal that people like that content. So that's definitely something I'll be doing a lot more of, trying to feature other YouTubers that you should be following whenever they pop up as well, because I hope for this year we'll get lots more people creating content. So that's a very quick overview of this. The other things on here are sort of, you know, small things, top videos over the last 28 days. I'll go to this in a slightly more detail in a second, but that's pretty much it over here. Lastly, go to the audience tab. This is interesting. This is over the last 28 days again, 30,000 unique viewers. That's a great sort of metric just to conceive, because the majority of people who watch the videos aren't subscribers, so they're only coming for one video, and so this average views per viewer is 1.5 because the majority of people aren't actually subscribed, so they'll only ever see one video. Now, the other thing to look at is when people are going on YouTube. It tends to be between 12 and 6. If you're going to post a video, post it in that sort of sweet spot. This gets really frustrating because sometimes you put up a video and YouTube doesn't render it quickly enough. I've actually had instances where I've had videos sitting in YouTube for like 3 days before it actually finished rendering and I could make it public. It's largely because, you know, I'm not a big channel, so when I put up a 4K video, the 4K version takes days to render. So I've just stopped sort of worrying too much about the 4K version. It will eventually turn up. If you ever watch that and you need the 4K version, just wait a day or two, or YouTube will get to it, and that's fine. Other channels that your audience watches. So I know that you are watching these other channels. Andy Kriebel, colleague of mine from the Information Lab, great channel, literally the original YouTube channel when it comes to Tableau content. The Information Lab, it's great. I help a lot out with this channel as well. It's our work channel, as it were. So I really help other people in the company create content. Nearly about to approach 10,000 subscribers there as well. Has been on YouTube for a really long while, so definitely check it out. And it's great to see here Sequel Bell, you know, making this list. I think last month she wasn't in it, but obviously, you know, she's creating lots of great content. She's growing her audience, and she's sort of in here as well. So you can start to see other people that, you know, should be watching out to. Now, I always say to people that most of the people who watch my video aren't subscribed, so I'm always begging for subscriptions, because, you know, if you're enjoying the content, it's the simplest way of just showing appreciation. Just hit the sub button, and yeah, it really helps out. You get a few more information about demographics. This data is sort of a hit and miss. Google partly collects it from, you know, its awareness of who's logged into Google. If you have a Gmail account, for example, it has a pretty good idea of your gender and your demographics. But in other cases, it actually just takes a guess. It's using their sort of advertising engine to kind of guess what demographic you're in based on things like your browsing history and your cookies and, you know, the kind of things that Google do. So if you're not a fan of that, you know, just get a decent web browser. I use Brave, switch on the ad blocking, and, you know, YouTube can't collect that. It will make a guesstimate, but sometimes those guesstimates are completely wrong. So at least these metrics are sort of never good to judge by. But it is interesting that, you know, YouTube generally thinks that most of my viewers, you know, are aged under, I'm going to say under 35. And, you know, that's sort of the spread. But I also know that, you know, some of this stuff is just wonky. I never really trust these metrics at all. Last one, language. Language is really important. I've always wondered why we don't see more YouTube content created natively for other languages. So I'm talking about, you know, if I look at some of these countries, India, if we look at other sort of Spanish speaking countries, there's a big group of countries that would really benefit from that. French, German content in native sort of language. It's really good because what you see here is that, you know, people are using the subtitles to sort of understand this. And a lot of foreign speakers will still use the English subtitles because then they can see what's being said, if that makes sense. So even the use of subtitles is actually kind of interesting. Even though I record in English, you'll still get a large percentage of people using English because it's easier for them to sort of interpret that and see it on the screen in case they get lost. Okay, so that's one sort of really nice area. Now, if I go to one of the videos, if I go to back to this top level, you'll see that I have 3 videos that generated the most views, and these are in the last 48 hours. So these numbers are from the last 48 hours. And the reason this is so important to me is because these videos took the longest amount of time to make in the last year. each and every one of these. So this first one, Tableau explained in under 10 minutes, that took me a whole week, 7 working days to make. I literally took off a week off work. I started on Monday and I just finished it on Sunday, just barely. The Tableau prep explained in under 10 minutes. This took me 4 days. It's a slightly shorter video, slightly smaller topic. And Tableau layout containers explained in under 10 minutes took me about 3 days to make. And they're very short videos, but they take a lot of time to make. And so when I spend that much time and then they end up being the most watched content time and time again, that lets me know that I've sort of got the right idea. So really, again, appreciate the time that people spend on that. If I go over to the video analytics, so this is the first one, the most watched video, you can kind of see that this video has exploded. I launched this and it had 2,000 views within the first day, and I thought, great, it sort of just sat there for a while. And then at about day 54, the YouTube algorithm kicked in and it's just been firing this content out to everyone that watches YouTube, as far as I'm concerned, because that to me is a crazy number. And you know, in many ways I'm very grateful because it means that many people have learned about Tableau. And the crazy thing is this video is responsible for half the subscribers on my channel. People watch this video, they find it useful, and they subscribe. So if you're thinking of starting a channel and you're thinking, man, I don't know how to make this video, it's going to take a lot of time, but I know this video would be really, really good. Spend the time, because it's that kind of content that really sets you apart from other people making YouTube videos, other people making, you know, content such as blogs. And YouTube is very good at getting that content out to people. Google's very good at getting that content out to people. So that's just something to know. Nearly half my watch time, everything, you know, this is since this video was published, so it's slightly skewed. If we just go to the 28 days, you can just see here that, you know, this video is also very sort of interesting. Just in the last 28 days, so 23,000 views. It's responsible for over half of my subscribers. So it's still, you know, the metric still holds true. And, you know, YouTube just keeps sending it out to people. I can't honestly explain why, because I also worried that, you know, maybe I should have spent a bit more time. I should have spent another week really polishing it up to make it a little bit better, because there are mistakes in it, technical mistakes rather than factual mistakes. And yeah, it's just an interesting dynamic to be aware of. But nevertheless, really sort of proud of how that's done. If I go to the next video, this was my layout containers video. This was actually me re-recording a video from years ago. People were still watching it, and I started to get embarrassed because it was so old, it just needed doing up. So I set my challenge of, you know, trying to make this video as short as possible. The previous one was done in 3 videos and this was done in 11 minutes. So it actually takes 10 minutes to cover the topic, and then the other minute 35 is me sort of adding fluff. Over the months I've started to cut the fluff out. I just get into the video now. But you can see here that people do watch certain sections again and again. If I actually go to this segment here, this is me actually laying stuff out, you know, in a container. So yeah, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that people struggle the most when it comes to putting containers in containers and how it can all change. So that particular part of the description is really commonly watched, and people essentially come back to it because, you know, no one sticks around for the first minute. People just skip ahead to the bits. If I click on this section there, the next bit is obviously me just explaining the different layout options. This next bit here is me explaining the next section. So it's almost like clockwork. You can see it sort of working really well. The most contiguous segment is basically the longest stretch of content that people watched without interruption. So from 1 minute 51 to 3 minutes 42, I basically lose nobody in this particular video based on how many people is left still watching it. So that's a really sort of good metric to be aware of. Okay. So that's that one. And then the last one here is the Tableau prep video. This is, you know, since it's been published, you know, live view, 117 people have watched in the last 48 hours. This is great to know. People are finding it in search. And you can see it's not as old as the other one, but it's starting to pick up here in terms of the YouTube algorithm. So it's been lying low for a while. And you can see here, this gray line is how most of my videos do. So the other honest thing here is that, look, videos are a hard slog. You'll put the video up and, you know, you shouldn't be disappointed if you've just started a channel and you're only getting 10 or 20 people to watch it. The better thing to do is actually just to share that content, share out to people, get them to share it, reach out to other YouTubers like myself and ask us to share it in our communities. And that will help get your content out there, and it will help YouTube start to pick it up more, especially if there's a link between, you know, people watching one channel and then your channel. So that's a really good sort of way of growing your channel. So that's pretty much it for the channel. I'm not really going to go too much into it. I've sort of hidden the revenue numbers that come in here, partly because I don't think it's important. It's not the reason why I do it, but also because it's not that much, and I don't want people to start to sort of get the wrong idea here. But to give you some sort of idea, if I go to this this video, I spent a whole week working on this, and I've heavily invested in sort of a lot of equipment I use. I heavily invest in things like software, a camera, a good microphone, so that this stuff is all really, really good. And I'm yet to make the money back on any of it. Okay, so I actually think it will probably be at the rate that I earn money on these videos. It will probably be 2 years before I pay all of that stuff back. So the way I look at this is that I basically, the reason I switched the revenue on is because in November of last year, YouTube made a change to their policy, which basically meant that regardless of whether or not you were part of their monetization program, they were going to essentially put ads on your videos. And so if you're not part of the monetization program, what they do is they can put ads anywhere in your videos. And I wasn't a fan of that. So what I did is I just switched on the monetization program, and I told YouTube to only put ads at the beginning of certain videos and at the end, and they're always skippable. The only ones where they're not skippable are the really old ones I don't want you to watch. So if you go to one of my videos and you see an ad that you can't skip, that is not a video you should be watching. But for everything else, the ads are always skippable, and they're never in the middle of content. They're only ever at the beginning or at the end. So that's pretty much how that works. And I basically put the funds back into making content, right? So making things better. The most recent thing I did is I actually paid for web hosting and Webflow with some the revenue that I generated on YouTube. So it's just feeding itself essentially, and I'm just seeing how that goes. If that changes, of course, if we start doing gangbusters on this, I have to start thinking of creative ways to put that money back into this content, because let's just say I'm a consultant, and YouTube doesn't compare, at least not at the moment. It doesn't compare to sort of what I could be earning doing that. So this is not, and you shouldn't see it as like a money making sort of scheme, because it's just not going to generate meaningful amounts of income for you, unless you can create something that goes absolutely viral at least once a week, every week for a year. This is not the way to do that. Okay, so that's pretty much the content. The next thing I wanted to cover is a few things changing with 2020. I was about to say 2020.4, but it's not 2020 anymore. We're in 2021. So in version 21.1, which is coming out very soon, Tableau have obviously publicized this page. And this is great because we start to see what's in there. However, this time around, what they've done is they've changed the beta program. So they're no longer releasing the beta version of Tableau up front, which obviously creates a little bit of a challenge if you make content that's supposed to be out on day one for the release. So in all honesty, actually in previous years, what actually happens is I sit around and I wait for Tableau to upload the installer for Tableau right before it goes live. And I typically record the content a day or two before it actually goes live, because once I see that queue, I know that the drop is about to come. So I shouldn't be giving these secrets out, but anyway, that's how I generally actually do it. So the 2 to 3 days before it comes out, I actually make the videos. That way I know I'm using the latest version of Tableau and it's working and nothing has changed. I can actually definitely talk about what's in there. These lists are never final. So there's been many times where stuff makes it even onto this public page and doesn't make it into the product. So it's a really difficult sort of dynamic to stay on top of. So maybe this is a good thing, but what it does mean is that unless I'm sort of, shit hot on getting comfortable with all of these very, very quickly, I won't probably be able to make a video on day one. So you might have to wait, a day or two before you see all the videos. The other thing is, it actually doesn't help that I upload them all at once. So what I will do this time around is I will upload them all at once on my website. So there'll be YouTube videos on my website. You'll be able to sort of navigate the playlist. To show you what that looks like, if I just go to tableautim.com, and we just go to the playlist page here, just go to playlists, you'll see that I have a range of playlists, and the most recent one here on 2020.4 looks like this. If you click start watching, it takes you straight in, and this is what it looks like. So you can see that all the videos are here. So on day one, once I've actually released the whole bunch of videos, this is what will be available. So you can come here and watch all the videos straight away. But on YouTube, what I'll be doing is I'll actually be releasing them 2 a day, because there's actually a limitation that if I release more than 3 videos a day, YouTube doesn't notify viewers of the subsequent videos. And so that actually has a downside effect that people don't know that the videos are there. People come to, write a comment saying, hey, when are the new videos dropping? And they realize they've missed some notifications because YouTube never sent them. So that's again a very strange dynamic. So I will obviously communicate this at the time. I will make the playlist public. If you actually go to the channel and you just go to the playlist page here, even if a video is unlisted, if it makes it into a playlist, so if I just go in here to the Tableau functions playlist, for example, and just, let's kill the audio. If we go in here and just click on this, even if a video is unlisted and not public, it will appear here in the playlist. So another way you can do this is just go to the playlist page where you can see all the videos. And then as I make them public, people will get notifications and they'll come to them over time. So again, a really strange sort of dynamic there, but that's just something we're going to have to work with over time and see how it goes. But that's just something to be expecting going up. Now, the very last thing, we hit 10,000 subscribers, which is great. I'm really super excited about 2020.4, but I was really fortunate to be welcomed into the Tableau Zen Master Programme. And if you don't know what the Tableau Zen Master Programme is, you can just head to the website and there's great content in here. I'm not going to go too much into that because it's here if you need it. The reason this means a lot to me is because I've been part of the Tableau community for 7 years. My first version of Tableau was version 7. And I was welcomed into a family as such by the Information Lab. That's where I've pretty much always worked. There's a year where we don't talk about it. I left briefly. I went to this other consultancy. It didn't work out, but I came back to the Information Lab, and I've learned so much from other colleagues, and I've learned so much from other people in the company. And so being recognized into the Tableau Zen Master Programme is essentially just number one, it's great to be recognized as someone who's helped other people learn Tableau. But more importantly, I think it's just a philosophy that I've learned for other people at the Information Lab. And so it's great to be sort of included in that group of amazing people. If you go to the announcement, actually, I just click on this little blog post, it shows everyone who's a current and new Zen Master. And it's a great family here. If I actually go to the official Zen Masters page, that's probably a better page to go to. I think there's a list. Here we are. So you can see all the other Zen Masters, and they have all written a bio. We all wrote them ourselves. They've all written a bio about what they do, and you can get to know them. And there's a massive list of Zen Masters. This is amazing, big cohort of people, and they're all doing great things. So if you've never heard of a Tableau Zen Master, go to this page. Every single one of them is doing things that you should be appreciating in the Tableau space, whether it's building communities, doing things with Tableau that you didn't think were possible, teaching other people Tableau, standing up for equal rights, or just being, absolute champions and helping other people learn and develop their skills. These are the people that are doing that. So it's a great place to go and learn from other people in the community. They are also Hall of Fame Zen Masters. The way I think of these people they're just ballers. They've been helping people for so long that they just gave them a permanent status on the program. So that's essentially what the Hall of Fame Zen Masters do. And again, I'm really fortunate at the Information Lab to be surrounded by Zen Masters. It's actually really crazy that so many people who are recognized in the community work at one company. So again, something I'm really sort of proud to be part of. And the recognition is great, but actually what means a lot more is people telling me that the content is good and that they enjoy it. So if I go back full circle to the channel dashboard, when I log in and I see comments like this from people, this is amazing because the way I think of it is micro training. I've always thought of YouTube as like a way of reaching out to people and just leaning over their shoulder and just showing them how to do something and then carrying on to the kitchen and grabbing your tea, right? That's the kind of thing we had in an office dynamic. And what I do on YouTube, I think of it as exactly that. I think of it as that sort of dynamic. So really appreciative. And again, thanks to everyone in the community who's really supported me by watching content, sending through a note of thanks, sending through a comment, telling me about things I could do better. It really means a lot to me. Okay, so this has been a long video. I didn't plan for it to go this long. I just hit record, I started recording, and here we are, nearly, I don't know how long we've been going for. What does it say? 35 minutes. Christ. That's a really long video. If you've watched all of this, you're one of the loyal people on the channel. In the next video, what I'll do this weekend is I'll actually make a video about how I make content. I'll go into the nitty-gritties of how. And you know, when people ask me how I make content, actually there's one thing that I think they should be asking instead, which is why I make content. So I will do 2 separate videos on that, because the how is one thing, and you know, there's a lot of technical things to cover. I think that's what people want to see, but the why is actually more important to me. So I'll get into that in a lot more detail, and I promise you they won't be as long as this video. This has just been me rambling about stuff, but there we go. We've got to the end, so if we're here, you know what to do. If you've liked the video, let me know. If you haven't, drop a link. If you haven't, dropped something in the comments, let me know what you'd like to see instead. Once again, thank you so much for your support. I really, really appreciate it. And I will catch you in the next video very soon.